Imagine spending $26,000 of your own hard-earned money, meticulously planning the trip of a lifetime for your family, only for your own father to call you up and tell you that you're no longer welcome. Not only that, but your spot is being given to your brother's manipulative, gold-digging fiancée because, and I quote, she deserves it more. Well, that was just the beginning of their very big mistake because I made sure they'd never forget what happened next. My name is Alexandra, and I'm 32. All my life, I've prided myself on being independent, hardworking, and deeply devoted to my family. That devotion, I realize now, often came at a price. To truly understand the sting of that betrayal, you need a little background on my family. My father, John, is 62, a retired military officer. He ran our home like a strict platoon. Growing up, his approval was everything to me, something I chased relentlessly but rarely caught. My mother, Diane, is 60. She's always been the family's peacekeeper, rarely contradicting my father, even when I knew she disagreed. Their marriage was traditional. He made the decisions, she supported them. Then there's Michael, my older brother. He's 35, and honestly, he's never quite found his footing. Dropped out of college twice, bounced between sales jobs, never stable. But in my parents' eyes, especially my father's, Michael was the golden child. He could do no wrong. If he scraped AC, he was praised. If I got all A's but one B, my father would question why I couldn't be perfect. This pattern continued into adulthood. When Michael ran up credit card debt on a spontaneous Vegas trip, my parents dipped into their retirement to bail him out. But when I needed a small loan for an unexpected medical bill right out of college, my father lectured me about financial responsibility and told me to figure it out. And I did. I worked extra shifts, ate ramen for a month. That disparity was always there, a quiet ache, but I learned to live with it. I focused on building my own life, putting myself through college and grad school, working multiple jobs. Meanwhile, my parents paid for all of Michael's uncompleted attempts at higher education. Despite this deeply uneven treatment, I always tried to stay close. Sunday dinners, regular calls. I wanted to be the daughter they were proud of, even if they rarely said it. As my career flourished and my finances improved, I became their go-to resource. A new roof for their house. My father called me. I contributed $8,000. Michael was between jobs, struggling with rent. My mother hinted, and I sent $2,000. He never even acknowledged it. Not a word of thanks. It was around this time Michael started dating Natalie. She's 28, works part-time at a boutique, but honestly, she calls in sick more often than she shows up. From the moment I met her, I felt an immediate sense of unease. She was polite, yes, but there was a calculating glint in her eyes, a manufactured charm. Natalie was quick. She sized up our family, instantly identifying who held the purse strings. Within weeks, she was calling my parents mom and dad, spending more time at their house than her own apartment. She'd gush over my mother's cooking, listen to my father's military stories with rapt attention, asking all the right ego-stroking questions. With me, though, she was different. The moment she learned what I did, her eyes lit up with a look I knew all too well. The one that says, "Oh, you have money. What can I get from you?" She started prying about my salary, my home, my vacations. When I stayed vague, her interest in me vanished. Poof! What bothered me most was how seamlessly she inserted herself into everything. If I planned dinner with my parents, Michael and Natalie would somehow always join. Wanted one-on-one time with Mom? Natalie would coincidentally drop by with some small gift or an urgent question. I tried to be generous, to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she just desperately wanted a family. Maybe her affection was genuine. But the pattern grew clearer. Natalie was only interested in the material benefits of being connected to us. She'd admire my mother's jewelry, hint about wanting similar pieces. She'd compliment my father's car, then mention Michael had promised to buy her one just like it someday, looking straight at my dad as she said it. Michael, bless his oblivious heart, seemed utterly infatuated. He hung on her every word, bending over backward to please her. I noticed he started buying her expensive gifts, despite his own shaky finances. When I gently asked where the money was coming from, he mumbled about side gigs and quickly changed the subject. I suspected my parents were funding his newfound generosity, but I held my tongue. Despite all my reservations about Natalie, I still loved my brother. I wanted a good relationship with him. And despite years of this uneven treatment from my parents, I still deeply cared for them. I wanted to do something truly special to show my appreciation, to give them an experience they'd never forget. And that's when the idea for the Dubai trip was born. The idea for the Dubai trip struck me during a quiet evening at my office, sorting through executive travel reports. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary was looming, a monumental milestone that, despite all our complicated family dynamics, deserved to be celebrated in a truly spectacular way. They'd never traveled outside the US. My father always dismissed international travel as too expensive, too complicated. My mother, though, occasionally expressed a quiet longing to see the world, but she never pushed. I wanted to give them something unforgettable, a world away from their suburban Illinois life. Dubai. It was perfect. A blend of sheer luxury, rich culture, mind-boggling architecture, and thrilling desert adventures. I pictured them in front of the Burj Khalifa, riding camels at sunset, memories they'd cherish forever. The weather during their anniversary month would be divine. I dove into research, spending every lunch break, every evening, meticulously mapping out the itinerary. First-class everything. 5-star hotels, private desert safaris, exclusive dining, VIP access to every major attraction. And yes, despite our differences, I decided to include Michael. He was their son too, and I knew they'd want him there. The total cost was staggering, nearly $26,000 for the four of us. It would devour almost my entire annual bonus and a significant chunk of my savings. But I told myself it was worth it. I opened a separate savings account, funneling money into it each month. I took on extra projects for performance bonuses. I cut corners, coffee at home, bringing lunch to work, postponing my dream kitchen renovation. For 18 months, I saved. I planned. I worked with a high-end travel agency, first-class Emirates flights, rooms at the iconic Burj Al Arab, one of the most luxurious hotels on earth, a private desert dinner with traditional entertainment, a guided tour of the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, a private yacht cruise around Palm Jumeirah, VIP access to the Burj Khalifa observation deck, even a private shopping experience at the Dubai Mall with a personal stylist. Every single booking, every payment, filled me with a quiet joy. I imagined my mother's gasp at the top of the world's tallest building, my father, who'd been deployed in the Middle East but never truly experienced its culture, savoring the tradition. I even hoped this shared adventure might finally bridge the distance between Michael and me. When every last detail was perfected, I presented the trip to my family during our usual Sunday dinner. I'd made elaborate invitation cards, gold embossed, and placed one beside each dessert plate. My mother opened hers first. Her hands trembled as she read. She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes, utterly speechless. "Alexandra, is this real?" she finally whispered. I just nodded, a huge smile on my face. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad." I wanted to do something truly special. My father scrutinized his card, a furrow in his brow, as if searching for the catch. "This must have cost a fortune," he stated. "Don't worry about that," I reassured him. "It's my gift. You both deserve it." Michael's eyes were wide. "First-class flights. The Burj Al Arab? Are you serious, Alex?" "Completely," I confirmed. "We leave in 6 months, the week of Mom and Dad's anniversary. I've already cleared my time off, even spoken to your boss, Michael. Everything is arranged." My mother immediately came around the table, wrapping me in a tight hug. "Thank you, sweetheart. This is the most wonderful gift anyone has ever given us." Even my father seemed genuinely moved, expressing it in his typical reserved way. "This is very generous of you, Alexandra. Thank you." It was one of those rare, precious moments where I felt truly appreciated by my family, especially by my father. That genuine gratitude in his eyes, it made every sacrifice, every penny, worth it. I finally felt seen. But that moment, that precious feeling, was shattered almost instantly. The doorbell rang. My mother answered it, and there stood Natalie, Michael's girlfriend. She'd decided to surprise Michael for dessert, though I suspected Michael had actually texted her about the elaborate family dinner. "I hope you don't mind me crashing," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Michael mentioned your mom's famous apple pie, and I just couldn't resist." She glided to a seat beside Michael, and then she saw the gold-embossed invitations. Her eyebrow arched. "What's this? Are we celebrating something?" Michael, beaming, quickly spilled all the details about the Dubai trip, his voice practically buzzing with excitement as he rattled off all the luxurious elements I had planned. Natalie's face transformed. Her eyes widened, a predatory smile spreading across her face. "Dubai. Oh my God, that sounds amazing," she exclaimed, snatching the invitation from Michael's hand, her envy naked and unrestrained. "I've always wanted to go there. All those Instagram influencers are always posting from Dubai. The shopping is supposed to be incredible." The way she emphasized Instagram made my stomach clench. I could practically see the social media content she was already plotting in her head. A cold dread seeped in, but I pushed it away. She wasn't invited, so it wasn't my problem, right? Throughout dessert, she peppered me with questions. How long? What attractions? Shopping time? Special experiences? With each answer, her expression grew more intense, a disturbing mix of longing and calculation that screamed warning bells in my mind. As the evening ended, Natalie gave me an uncomfortably tight hug. "You're so generous to do this for your family, Alexandra," she purred. "Michael is lucky to have such a caring sister." Her tone felt utterly disingenuous, but I just smiled politely and thanked her. Driving home that night, a vague, chilling sense of unease settled over me. In hindsight, I should have listened to that feeling. It was the first whisper of the storm that was about to hit. Just 2 months before our departure, Michael called with news. He and Natalie were engaged. He proposed on a Lake Michigan trip, with a diamond ring I soon learned was bought with money borrowed from our parents. "That's wonderful, Michael," I said, trying to sound genuinely happy, despite my gut screaming otherwise. "I'm happy for you both." He sounded genuinely excited. "Natalie's already talking venues and dresses. You know how women get with wedding planning." I let that slide. "Our parents," he said, "were thrilled. My mom cried. My dad actually hugged him. They were hosting dinner that Sunday to celebrate. I debated what to bring as a gift, settling on champagne, traditional, appropriate, and not too personal. I wasn't ready to emotionally or financially invest in a relationship I had so many doubts about. When I arrived, the house was buzzing. My mother had outdone herself with an elaborate meal. My father had flowers on the table. Michael and Natalie sat in the living room, accepting congratulations like visiting royalty. Natalie was practically shoving her engagement ring into my mother's face, who was oohing and ahhing on cue. "Alexandra!" Natalie squealed, jumping up to embrace me. "So glad you could make it. Look at my ring. Isn't it gorgeous?" Michael did so well. I admired the ring politely. It was at least 2 carats, far beyond anything Michael could afford. My suspicion about my parents' financial involvement solidified when I noticed my mother wearing costume jewelry instead of her usual gold pieces. She'd clearly pawned some of her own to fund this grand gesture. Midway through dinner, the conversation, inevitably, turned to the Dubai trip, now just 8 weeks away. Natalie leaned forward, eyes gleaming, as my mother talked about her packing plans. "Oh, I've been researching Dubai fashion," Natalie interjected, a little too eagerly. "For the desert safari, you'll want light layers. It gets cold at night. And for the Burj Al Arab, we should definitely dress up." I was thinking my new red dress, the one with gold accents. That casual we. It hit me like a splash of ice water. My internal alarm bell screamed. I glanced at Michael. He was suddenly fascinated by his plate, studiously avoiding my gaze. My father, meanwhile, nodded along, seemingly oblivious to her audacious presumption. By the way, if you're still hooked on this wild family saga, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next, or any of the other unbelievable stories I have coming. I cleared my throat. Natalie, I began, my voice carefully even. I'm not sure if Michael explained, but this trip is for Mom and Dad's anniversary. I've made reservations for 4. My parents, Michael, and myself. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the table. Natalie's smile froze, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. My father slammed his fork down. A sound I knew from childhood, a clear warning. Alexandra, he said slowly, his voice laced with menace. Now that Michael and Natalie are engaged, don't you think it would be appropriate to include her in our family celebration? My stomach twisted into a knot. Dad, I tried to explain, I would love to, but the trip is planned and paid for 4 people. All the reservations, the hotel, the private tours, everything is set. Adding a 5th person now would be incredibly complicated and expensive. Surely you can make some adjustments, he pressed, his voice hardening. Natalie is going to be part of our family now. My mother, silent until now, finally spoke up, her voice small. The trip is Alexandra's gift to us, John. She's put so much thought and money into it. I shot her a grateful look, but my father simply waved her away. Alexandra is doing very well. I'm sure the additional cost wouldn't be a burden. Michael finally looked up from his plate. Natalie has never even been out of the country. She doesn't have a passport yet, but we're expediting it. This would be such an amazing first international experience for her. Natalie leaned over, squeezing my father's hand. Oh, I'd never want to impose, John, she said, a sickly sweet tone coating her words. It's just, Michael has told me so much, and it sounds like such special family time. I'd love to be included, but I completely understand if it's not possible. Her voice was conciliatory, but her smirk was a different story. I took a deep, shaky breath. The issue isn't just the additional cost, though that's a huge factor. The Burj Al Arab suites are configured for specific numbers. The desert dinner is a private booking for 4. First-class A fee for another person right now would be over $5,000, if we could even get a seat on the same flight. So you're saying no? My father's tone was sharp. I see. I'm saying it would be very difficult to change everything, I clarified. Perhaps Natalie and Michael could plan their own Dubai trip after the wedding? I'd be happy to share my research. That's very generous of you, Alexandra, Natalie chirped, a tight smile plastered on her face. But it wouldn't be the same as experiencing it together, as a family, for such a special occasion. My father nodded in agreement. Family should be together for important celebrations. The breathtaking hypocrisy of him suddenly emphasizing family togetherness when it only served Natalie's agenda was not lost on me. But I bit my tongue. This was supposed to be a happy engagement celebration, not a decades-long showdown about favoritism. Let me look into the options, I conceded, even though I had zero intention of spending thousands more on someone I was increasingly convinced was exploiting my family. The rest of dinner was an unbearable minefield of tension. As I was leaving, my father walked me to the door, his expression grim. Alexandra, he said, his tone a cold warning. I hope you'll make the right decision about this trip. I'll do my best, Dad, I replied, numb. A heavy dread settled over me as I drove home. I knew this wasn't over. This was just the terrifying prelude to a situation that would test every boundary of my relationship with my entire family. A month before we were set to leave for Dubai, my father called. We need to talk about the trip, he said, his voice unnervingly careful. Can you come by tonight? I agreed, a sickening feeling twisting in my gut. I'd noticed a weird silence around the trip lately, vague answers whenever I tried to confirm details. I just knew. When I arrived, my mother opened the door, her eyes barely meeting mine. Inside, my father sat rigidly in his favorite armchair. Michael was on the couch, and beside him, looking far too comfortable for a guest, was Natalie. Alexandra, have a seat, my father commanded, gesturing to a lone chair positioned directly opposite him. I felt like I was facing a firing squad. My heart hammered in my chest. What's going on? He cleared his throat. We've been doing some thinking about the Dubai trip, and we've made a decision. It screamed at me. This was my gift, yet they were making decisions without me. Your mother and I believe that since Natalie is joining our family, this anniversary trip would be a perfect opportunity for us all to bond and create memories together. I nodded slowly, bracing myself. As I said, adding another person would be complicated, but I can look into the costs and changes if you feel strongly. That's not quite what we had in mind. My father cut in, actually looking a little uncomfortable for the first time. Given the limitations you mentioned about the reservations being for 4 people, we think the most sensible solution is for Natalie to take your place on the trip. The words hit me like a physical punch. I stared at him, sure I had misheard. Excuse me. It makes the most sense. He pressed on, his voice regaining its authoritarian edge, the one that brooked no argument. You've traveled internationally before. Natalie never has. This would be a new experience for her. For you, it would just be another trip. The air seemed to vanish from the room. My mother stared at her hands, twisting her wedding ring. Michael, bless him, at least looked a little ashamed, but he didn't say a word. Natalie, though, she sat there, a faint, triumphant smile playing on her lips. Dad, I finally choked out, my voice barely a whisper. I paid for this trip. I planned every single detail. This was my gift for you and Mom's anniversary. And we appreciate that, he said quickly, dismissively. But gifts, once given, belong to the recipient. Your mother and I would like to share this experience with our son and his future wife. The casual cruelty of that statement left me utterly breathless. I looked to my mother, begging for support with my eyes, but she remained silent, head bowed. Natalie deserves to go more than you do, my father added, delivering the most vicious blow of all. She's about to become part of this family. This trip would mean so much more to her than it would to you. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and stinging, but I refused to let them fall. I've been planning this for over a year and a half. I worked extra hours, gave up my own vacation plans, spent nearly $26,000 to create this experience for our family. And we'll pay you back for your portion, my father said, as if that solved anything. Michael calculated your share would be around $6,000. We can write you a check right now. I let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. $6,000, Dad? The first-class airfare alone is more than that per person. Not to mention the hotel suites, the private tours, the special experiences I arranged. Michael finally found his voice, turning his anger on me. Alex, don't be selfish about this. Family helps family. Natalie and I can't afford a trip like this on our own. You have a great job. You can go to Dubai anytime you want. Selfish, I repeated, my voice rising despite my desperate efforts to stay calm. I spent my own money I worked hard for, to give our parents a special anniversary gift. How does that make me selfish? It's selfish to deny Natalie this opportunity just because you want to go. Michael shot back. You always have to be the center of attention, don't you? Always showing off how successful you are, how much money you make. His words were so breathtakingly hypocritical, so utterly divorced from reality, that for a moment, I couldn't even respond. Years of quietly supporting this family, receiving little recognition, even less gratitude, and now I was being accused of showing off. Michael, I've never. Alexandra, my father cut in, his tone making it abundantly clear that the matter was settled. Our decision is final. Natalie will be going in your place. We can discuss the financial details later if you're unhappy with the amount we've offered. Natalie, who had been watching this entire exchange with poorly concealed satisfaction, finally spoke, her voice laced with false concern. Alexandra, I want you to know how much this means to me. I never had the opportunity to travel growing up, and sharing this experience with Michael and my future in-laws is something I'll cherish forever. I'm so grateful to be included in such a special family moment. Her performance was flawless, her eyes wide with feigned sincerity. If it weren't for the smug, barely suppressed smirk, I might have almost believed her. My mother finally looked up, her expression pained, on the verge of speaking. Alexandra, it's fine, Mom, I interrupted, unable to bear her making excuses for this colossal betrayal. I understand exactly what's happening here. I stood up, my legs feeling strangely unstable beneath me. I hope you all enjoy the trip. It is a gift, after all, and apparently, gifts once given belong to the recipient to do with as they please. Don't be dramatic, Alexandra, my father snapped, frowning. This is a practical solution to a simple problem. There was no problem until you created one, I shot back, my voice finding its strength. The problem is that you have always treated Michael differently than me. The problem is that you see nothing wrong with taking something I worked hard for and giving it to someone else because you think they deserve it more. The problem is that I'm supposedly part of this family too, but I'm being pushed aside the moment someone new comes along. My father's expression hardened. That is enough. I will not be spoken to this way in my own home. Fine, I said, grabbing my purse. Then I'll leave. As I headed for the door, Natalie's voice, sickly sweet, floated after me. Alexandra, please don't leave angry. We're going to be sisters soon. I'd hate for this to come between us. I stopped. I turned back. I looked at all of them. You know what, Natalie? My voice was cold, sharp. We are not going to be sisters. You may marry my brother. You may charm my parents. But you and I will never be family. Not after this. I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me. In my car, the dam finally broke. Great, heaving sobs racked my entire body. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Not just from my father, whose favoritism I'd long accepted as a cruel fact of life, but from my mother, who had always at least pretended to love us equally. Even from Michael, my own brother, the person who had shared my childhood and who, I thought, should have understood what this meant to me. As I drove home, my profound sadness slowly began to give way. First, to a simmer of indignation. Then, to a roaring, consuming anger. I had spent $26,000, countless hours, made endless personal sacrifices, all to create this perfect, special experience. And in one conversation, it was ripped away, handed to someone who had done nothing to earn it, someone who was so clearly using my family for her own gain. By the time I reached my house, a fierce, cold resolve had hardened within me. They thought they could remove me from my trip. They thought they could treat me this way without consequences. Oh, they were about to learn a very, very expensive lesson. That night, I cried until I was empty, the betrayal a gaping wound in my chest. Around midnight, I called my best friend, Sarah, who answered instantly despite the late hour. They did what? She shrieked after I told her everything. Your own father kicked you off a trip you paid for, and they expect you to just accept that. My voice was raw from crying. He actually said Natalie deserved to go more than I do. After everything I've done for them, all the financial help, this is how they treat me. Alex, I love you, Sarah said, her voice firm. But you have got to stop letting your family walk all over you. They've exploited your generosity for years, and now they've crossed a line that should never be crossed. What am I supposed to do? I wailed. The trip's paid for. If I make a fuss, I'll just be the difficult one, as usual. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, a new tone entered her voice, a glint of steel. Don't let them get away with this. You planned this trip. You paid for it. The reservations are in your name, right? Yes, I confirmed, a flicker of an idea sparking in my exhausted mind. Everything was booked through my travel agent, under my name. Then you still have control, she stated. They can't just remove you without your cooperation. A powerful thought began to solidify. She was right. The bookings were mine. I was the primary contact for everything. Exactly, Sarah said, and I could almost hear her smile. I'm not saying cancel everything. That might be too harsh. But maybe some adjustments could be made. We talked for another hour, exploring possibilities. By the time we hung up, my tears had dried. A plan, cold and precise, was taking shape. I wouldn't cancel the trip entirely. That would be too vindictive. But I would ensure that the luxurious experience I had so lovingly planned and so dearly paid for was drastically, fundamentally altered. The next morning, I called my travel agent, Melissa. I explained the situation, keeping my voice professional, omitting the most painful emotional details. I need to make some significant changes to the Dubai booking, I said once the pleasantries were over. Unfortunately, I won't be joining the trip, and we need to adjust the reservations accordingly. I'm sorry to hear that, Alexandra, Melissa said, sounding genuinely disappointed for me. What kind of changes do you have in mind? First, the flights. Instead of first class on Emirates, I'd like to switch everyone to economy class. Melissa paused. That's quite a downgrade. Are you sure? Positive, I confirmed, a chilling resolve in my voice. Next, cancel the reservation at the Burj Al Arab. Instead, please book 2 standard rooms at. I consulted a list of hotels I'd researched the night before. The City Seasons Hotel. In Dira, I believe. That's on the other side of the city from all the attractions you'd planned, Melissa pointed out cautiously. And it's a 3-star hotel, not the luxury experience you were aiming for. That's fine, I assured her. Also, I need to cancel all the private tours and experiences I'd booked. The desert dinner, the yacht cruise, the VIP access at the Burj Khalifa, all of it. Alexandra, Melissa said slowly, a note of concern in her voice. These changes will drastically alter the trip. Are you absolutely certain this is what you want to do? I am, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. My circumstances have changed. These adjustments are necessary. Please also cancel the airport transfers and the personal shopping experience. Melissa sighed, but began making notes. What about basic transportation around Dubai? She asked. Do you want me to arrange anything for them? I considered this. I didn't want to completely strand them in an unfamiliar city. That would be truly cruel. Please arrange a basic tour package, I instructed. Something that includes transportation to the main attractions, but without any VIP elements or private guides. I can do that, she confirmed. And, I added, will you be rebooking your portion of the trip for a later date? The refund from these downgraded elements could be applied to a solo trip for you. This was something I'd already considered. Yes, I've been thinking about the Maldives. Could you see what kind of upgrade I could get for a one-person trip with the difference? Melissa's tone instantly warmed. The Maldives is beautiful. I'd be happy to put together some options. With a difference from downgrading the Dubai trip, you could have a very luxurious experience there. We spent the next hour methodically going through every detail, canceling, rebooking, and reallocating funds. By the time we finished, the Dubai trip had been transformed from a first-class, once-in-a-lifetime luxury experience into a very basic, no-frills international vacation. Meanwhile, I had secured myself a week at an overwater bungalow in the Maldives, complete with private butler service, daily spa treatments, and gourmet dining. All the changes have been processed, Melissa confirmed. The new itineraries will be emailed to you shortly. Do you want me to send the updated Dubai itinerary to your family members directly? No, I decided after a moment of cold consideration. I'll handle communicating the changes to them. But I had no intention of doing so. Let them discover the truth when they arrived at the airport, expecting first-class treatment and champagne, only to be directed to the economy check-in desk. Let them realize what had happened when they arrived in Dubai and were taken to a basic hotel, miles from the attractions, instead of one of the most luxurious hotels in the world. A small part of me felt a flicker of guilt, especially for my mother. But then I remembered her silence. Her absolute silence as my father informed me I was being removed from the trip I had paid for. Her unwillingness to stand up for me, even in that extreme moment. The guilt evaporated, replaced by a fierce sense of righteous justice. I wasn't canceling their trip. They'd still go to Dubai, still see the sights, still experience a new country. They just wouldn't be doing it in the lavish style I'd originally planned. The difference would go towards my own well-deserved vacation, a small compensation for the profound hurt they had caused me. As I hung up with Melissa, a monumental weight lifted from my shoulders. For perhaps the first time in my entire life, I had truly stood up for myself against my family's unfair treatment. It wasn't a perfect solution, and I knew the fallout would be immense. But in that moment, I honestly couldn't bring myself to care. They had made their choice. Now, I had made mine. The day of the Dubai trip arrived. I hadn't spoken to any of them since that awful night. My father had left one message about financial arrangements, which I ignored. My mother sent a few bland texts, carefully avoiding the giant elephant in the room. Michael, crickets, nothing. I knew exactly when their flight was scheduled to depart. I pictured them, dressed in their finest, expecting to be whisked into the first-class lounge for champagne and gourmet snacks. Instead, they'd be herded into the economy check-in line, standing with the masses, their boarding passes showing seats at the very back of the plane. The spacious first-class pods I'd booked. Gone. I was at my desk at work, pretending to stare at a spreadsheet, actually watching the clock, when my phone rang. It was my father. I hesitated, then answered. Time to face the music. "Hello, Dad," I said, keeping my voice utterly neutral. "Alexandra, what the hell is going on?" His voice was tight with pure fury. "We're at the airport, and they're telling us we have economy tickets, not first class. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," I replied calmly, almost enjoying the stunned silence that followed. "I made some adjustments to the reservations." Then he exploded. "You did what? How dare you change the arrangements without telling us? We look like absolute fools standing here. The check-in agent is looking at us like we're trying to scam our way into first class." "I'm sorry you're embarrassed," I said, not feeling a single shred of remorse. "But as you said, Dad, gifts once given belong to the recipient. You decided to change who was going on this trip, and I decided to change what kind of trip it would be. This is completely unacceptable," he sputtered, his voice shaking. "We had an agreement." "Did we?" I shot back, my voice gaining strength. "I don't recall agreeing to be kicked off my own trip. I don't recall agreeing to have my gift redistributed to someone who, until recently, was a stranger to our family." "Is this about money?" he demanded. "Because if it is, we can discuss increasing the amount we pay you back." "It's not about money, Dad. It's about respect. It's about appreciation for what I tried to do for our family. It's about decades of being treated as less important than Michael, culminating in being told that his girlfriend deserves my place on a trip I paid for more than I do." I could hear my mother in the background, asking frantically what was happening. Then my father's muffled explanation, followed by her sharp gasp. "Alexandra." My mother's voice came through the phone, sounding strained, as if she'd taken it from my father. "Sweetheart, please. This is our anniversary trip. Can't we work this out?" "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, genuinely regretful that she was caught in this crossfire. "But the decision has been made. Just like the decision to remove me from the trip was made. You're still going to Dubai. You'll still see all the sights. It just won't be the luxury experience I'd originally planned." She started to speak again, but my father clearly snatched the phone back. "You listen to me," he snarled, his voice low and dangerous. "You fix this right now, or there will be serious consequences for your relationship with this family." "I think those consequences already happened, Dad," I replied, my voice chillingly calm. "When you decided Natalie was more deserving of my place than I was. Enjoy economy class. I hear the middle seats are particularly comfortable." And then I hung up. My heart was pounding, but an undeniable wave of satisfaction washed over me. I had expected guilt, but instead, I felt utterly empowered. For once, I had refused to be the family doormat. Over the next few days, the messages began to pour in, each one a reaction to a new discovery. Michael texted furiously when they arrived at the hotel in Dira, a 3-star joint miles from the glamorous downtown Dubai they'd expected. "What the hell, Alex? This hotel is barely 3 stars, and it's in the middle of nowhere. The rooms are tiny, no view. How could you do this to us?" I didn't respond. My mother called, her voice tearful in the voicemail, when they realized all the special experiences were gone. "Alexandra, I understand you're hurt, but this was supposed to be our anniversary celebration. The desert dinner I was looking forward to, canceled. The private yacht cruise, gone. Everything special has been removed. Please call me back. We need to talk. I still didn't return her call. Natalie, predictably, took to social media, though she carefully avoided mentioning me directly. Her Instagram posts, which had started with gushing excitement about her dream trip to Dubai, quickly devolved into thinly veiled complaints. Not everything is as glamorous as it seems on social media, she wrote under a picture of their basic hotel room. But we're making the best of it. #expectation vs reality #travel fails. Another post showed them stuck in the regular observation deck line at the Burj Khalifa, hours of waiting instead of the instant VIP access I'd arranged. 3-hour wait just to get to the elevator. Someone did not plan this very well. #exhausted #not worth it. But the most satisfying message came 4 days into their trip. A voicemail from my father, his tone dramatically different from his airport rage. "Alexandra," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. I think I owe you an apology. We didn't realize the extent of what you had planned for this trip. The travel agency showed us the original itinerary when we tried to rebook some of the experiences. I had no idea you had invested so much into making this special." He paused, clearing his throat. "What we did was wrong. I see that now. Taking your place on this trip was unfair, especially after all you did to plan it. I should have considered your feelings more carefully. I hope when we return, we can sit down and talk about this. I want to make things right." I saved that message, but I still didn't call back. I wanted them to truly sit with their choices, to let the realization sink in a little longer. Then, the most unexpected development, a private message from my mother on the 5th day. It was longer, more heartfelt than anything she'd sent me in years. "Alexandra, I need to tell you how sorry I am. Not just for this trip situation, but for years of standing by while your father favored Michael. I've always been too afraid to stand up to him, too worried about rocking the boat. But seeing how hurt you are, how justifiably angry, has made me realize that my silence has been a form of betrayal, too." She continued, "Michael and Natalie have been fighting constantly on this trip. The stress of the downgraded accommodations, the long waits, Natalie's expected special treatment that never materialized, it's all revealed cracks in their relationship that I suspect were always there. Your father is even starting to see Natalie's true colors. She's been complaining non-stop, blaming everyone else." My mother finished, "I know this doesn't excuse what we did, but I thought you should know your absence has been keenly felt. This trip was your vision, your gift, and without you here to share it, it feels hollow. When we return, I hope we can begin to repair our relationship. I have a lot of making up to do, and a lot of changes to make in how I stand up for you in the future." That message brought tears to my eyes, but not of sadness. Tears of pure, profound validation. My mother had finally seen what I had been experiencing for years. It was a small step, but a monumental one. The final update, brief but telling, came from Michael himself on their last day. "You were right about Natalie. I'm sorry." From their social media, I lay to piece together what had happened. Natalie, furious when Michael refused to buy her an expensive handbag at the Dubai Mall, accused him of being cheap and ruining her once-in-a-lifetime trip. The argument exploded, forcing my parents to intervene. In that ugly confrontation, some devastating truths about Natalie's real motivations finally came to light. While they endured their considerably less luxurious vacation, I was enjoying absolute serenity in the Maldives. My overwater bungalow was everything I'd dreamed of. Crystal clear turquoise waters beneath my private deck, spectacular sunsets from my personal infinity pool. The staff treated me like royalty, remembering my name and preferences from day one. Breakfast delivered by boat each morning. Fresh seafood dinners under a canopy of stars each evening. I posted exactly one photo on social media during my entire trip. A simple shot of my feet propped up on the deck railing, the endless blue ocean stretching to the horizon, with one caption, "Sometimes you have to choose yourself." #selfcare #Maldives. I knew my family would see it. I knew they would understand. And for once, I genuinely did not care what they thought about my choices. When I returned from the Maldives, tanned, rested, and with a profound new sense of self-respect, I found a flood of messages waiting. My family had been back for a few days, and it seemed they were all desperate to talk. I took my time. I allowed myself the space to process, to decide how I wanted to move forward. Eventually, I agreed to meet my father for coffee at a neutral cafe, halfway between our homes. I was surprised to find him already there, looking uncharacteristically nervous. He stood as I approached, an automatic military courtesy that felt strangely formal between us. "Alexandra," he said, pulling out my chair. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded and sat, waiting for him. The burden of starting was his. "I owe you an apology," he finally said, his voice gruff with emotion. What we did with the Dubai trip, was wrong. I see that now. Why did you do it?" I asked, the question that had burned in me for weeks. Why did you think it was acceptable to take something I worked so hard for and give it to someone else? He sighed heavily. I could give you excuses. About wanting to welcome Natalie into the family. About thinking you'd understand because you're always so capable and independent. But the truth is simpler and much harder to admit. I haven't been fair to you for a very long time. He looked down at his coffee cup, turning it slowly. I've always expected more from you than from Michael. When you succeeded, I took it for granted. When you gave, I accepted without proper gratitude. I held you to a higher standard, and then I resented you for meeting it. His admission stunned me. I had always felt this dynamic, deep in my bones, but I never in a million years expected him to actually acknowledge it. The Dubai trip, he continued, was just the most egregious example of a pattern that's existed since you were children. I favored Michael because he struggled, because he seemed to need more support. But in doing so, I failed to appreciate the daughter who never gave me cause for worry, who always exceeded expectations. Tears pricked my eyes again, but this time, I let them fall. I blinked them away, though. "Do you know how much it hurt?" I asked, my voice thick, "when you said Natalie deserved to go more than I did, after all I'd done to create that experience for our family." "I do now," he said quietly. "I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, or maybe ever. But I want you to know that I see what I've done, and I'm committed to changing. Your mother and I have had many long conversations about this since we returned. She's helped me see things I was blind to before. We talked for over 2 hours, airing out years of accumulated hurts and misunderstandings. It wasn't a magical, Hollywood resolution where everything was instantly forgiven. But it was a beginning, a fragile foundation upon which we could potentially build a healthier relationship. As for Michael, the Dubai trip had indeed been a rude awakening. Natalie's true colors shone vividly under the stress of disappointment. Her constant complaints about the downgraded hotel, the endless lines, the utter lack of VIP treatment she'd expected, it revealed a materialism and entitlement that could no longer be ignored. Their constant fighting culminated in that public argument at the Dubai Mall, leaving my mother in tears and my father seething. 2 weeks after their return, Michael ended the engagement. Natalie, predictably, did not take it well. She demanded to keep the ring, threatened to tell everyone Michael was abusive. He wasn't, and finally resorted to calling me, bizarrely claiming I owed her compensation for ruining her trip. I listened to her rant for precisely 1 minute before cutting her off. "Natalie, this conversation is over. Do not contact me or my family again." I blocked her number and all her social media accounts immediately afterward. My relationship with my mother improved more quickly than with my father. She reached out constantly, not with superficial check-ins, but with genuine interest in my life and my thoughts. She slowly, tentatively, began standing up to my father on small issues, finding her voice after decades of deference. It was a slow process, but I could see her making a conscious effort to change patterns that had been ingrained over 40 years of marriage. Michael and I had the most complicated road to recovery. He'd been raised to expect preferential treatment, to believe his needs always came first. Breaking that mindset wasn't easy for either of us. We had several false starts, conversations that quickly devolved into old accusations and defenses. But gradually, as he processed the lessons from his disastrous relationship with Natalie and saw the changes our parents were making, his perspective began to shift. 6 months after the Dubai fiasco, he invited me to dinner. He offered a genuine, heartfelt apology, not just for the trip, but for years of accepting advantages at my expense. "I never thank you for helping with my rent last year," he admitted, "or for any of the other times you bailed me out. I just took it for granted that you'd always be there, without ever considering how I could support you in return." For me, the entire experience was transformative. I learned to set clear, unwavering boundaries with my family, to assert my own needs and expect them to be respected. I stopped automatically saying yes to financial requests, instead evaluating each situation on its own merits. Sometimes I still said yes, but it was a conscious choice now, not a foregone conclusion. I also began to examine my own patterns of people-pleasing and seeking validation through sacrifice. With the help of a therapist, I explored why I'd been so willing to spend enormous sums of money and effort to create perfect experiences for people who often showed little appreciation. I learned to value myself enough to expect reciprocity in my relationships, both within my family and beyond. That Dubai trip that never was became a seismic turning point in our family dynamic. It forced issues that had simmered beneath the surface for decades to finally boil over, creating an opportunity for honest, albeit painful, conversation and real, lasting change. It was messy, it was hurtful, but ultimately, it was necessary for all of us to grow. My father still occasionally slips into old patterns of favoring Michael or taking me for granted. My mother sometimes falls back into her peacekeeper role. Michael has moments of entitlement that echo our childhood dynamic. And I still, occasionally, find myself tempted to overextend myself to earn their approval. But now, we catch ourselves. We catch each other. We talk about these patterns openly, instead of pretending they don't exist. For my parents' 41st anniversary, we took a much more modest trip together, a long weekend at a lakeside cabin, a few hours from their home. We cooked meals. We played board games. We had conversations that would have been utterly impossible a year earlier. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic in a way the luxurious Dubai trip never could have been. If you're watching this, and these patterns feel uncomfortably familiar in your own family, please know this: change is possible. But it demands immense courage, brutal honesty, and often a painful catalyst to force everyone to confront uncomfortable truths. Sometimes, you have to make incredibly difficult choices to protect yourself, to finally establish those healthy boundaries you deserve. It doesn't mean you don't love your family. It means you finally love yourself enough to demand better treatment. So, what about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took advantage of your generosity? How did you navigate that treacherous path? Let me know in the comments below. I truly want to hear your stories. If my experience resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more real-life lessons learned. And if you know someone who needs to hear that it's okay to stand up for themselves, even to family, please share this with them. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care.